Hello, and welcome to what I'm going to call a supplementary guide for 7.0 Bandos. I use the word supplementary because this isn't a full guide on doing 7.0 Bandos, rather an elaboration on how to work the room when you make a mistake or you're just trying to get set up for a new trip. A traditional guide is going to be much more focused on the method and the gearing, rather than the techniques on how to recover or how to make a mistake and get on your way without it affecting the length of your trip. A quick note. I'm going to take some liberties, but most of the concepts of 7.0 or even 9.0 will be covered in this video. I do recommend after finishing this video that you watch a full guide that includes tile marking as well as the core fundamentals doing the 7.0 method. Before we get into the fight, let's talk about planning your inventory at the bank. Don't be hung up on the inventory setup you saw in someone's guide, on the strategy guide, or a friend using. Once you're comfortable with this method, bringing more stamina or super restores will be the way to go, and the most common inventory setup. But start small and give yourself enough supplies to tank a few hits. Considering the time invested to get the kill count to enter the boss room, the last thing you want to do is leave or die with only 1 or 2 kills. Although you shouldn't sweat the occasional death or teleport, it does limit your ability to learn and become more comfortable with the method if you constantly need to leave. There are 2 typical setups for 7.0 Bandos, depending on your spellbook options. If you are using blood spells, on the left, there's a typical inventory that you will see that most guides will recommend. You'll see a few brews, some food, 4 stamina pots, and 4 bastion or range pots. On the right you can see a modified version of this inventory, removing 1 stamina and 1 bastion. This is because, if you are learning, the increased trip duration for more staminas and bastions is likely going to go unused. The example on the screen now is similar, except the inventory has been slightly modified for thrall spells, but the basics of the inventory management remains the same. Feel free to modify your inventory as necessary to expand your trips. Just take into consideration what I've put on the screen. If you're using Saradomin brews frequently, you can bring ranging pots over bastion pots to save some money, because a Saradomin brew will give you the defense bonus that the bastion potion would have anyway. And something to consider as you make progressive changes to your inventory setup. Remember that stamina pots and super restores have a higher priority over stat boosting pots to sustain your trips. Yes, stat pots will make your DPS higher for faster kills, but in this example we're talking about maximizing hit points restore while you are learning, so feel free to drop a bastion potion or ranging potion for a Saradomin brew. To sum it all up, when you are learning, bring more food and Saradomin brews to ensure you can survive and remain in the room longer for more time with Bandos, and therefore more time to learn. A quick tip for normie accounts, you can intentionally die in the room on your first trip with some food and supplies in your inventory, which will remain on the floor for 1 hour, giving you the opportunity for extra supplies and doing additional KC and more practice. Okay, on to the fun part, entering the Bandos room. Entering the Bandos room is the most difficult part of this method, or at least it can be if done incorrectly. I find that many people oversimplify this part when showing someone the method, and a bad start can set you up on a trajectory of failure, and make each round and kill more difficult by needing to defend and recover from an inauspicious situation right from the start. Before you enter, you'll want to overheal and fully pot up, which should be something you're used to anyway. Sip a Saradomin brew over your piece of food. Save your food for emergencies. In order, Saradomin brew, super restore, stat pot like your bastion or your ranging pot, then your stamina. You will want to pray melee to protect yourself from Bandos' big attack, his punch, which can hit upwards of 50 and more. Then toggle your offensive prayer, preferably rigor, and enter the room. Once you've walked through the door, stay where you are and let Bandos come to you. Once he comes to you, or if he is already by the door, click toward the tile where you will place your food, the red click tile. If you are unaware what the red click tile represents, in short, it is a tile where you will drop an item, and when you're doing the cycle with Bandos, you will click that tile to create a red click, which will register and stall Bandos, allowing you to run through him and have him not attack you as you reset the cycle and get in front of him. Once you have clicked the red click tile and are on your way toward it, and there is a safe gap between you and Bandos, marking Bandos and using True Tile Indicator works well here, turn on your Protect from Range prayer. Then toggle over your inventory on the food or item that you plan to drop, and right-click Drop. When your True Tile Indicator shows your position over that tile, hit Drop and then proceed to the next tile shown on the screen. If you are not confident in getting both your Protect from Range prayer and dropping the food in the time from the start to the red click tile, Prioritize switching to range, just be sure there's space between you and Bandos. And when you reach the red click tile, proceed to the tile shown on the screen, and begin the cycle without the food on the red click tile. This is not an ideal situation, but can be dealt with once you are settled in the room. It's better to keep moving than to be stationary. You don't want to force yourself into a risky situation while setting up Bandos, and cost yourself 50 plus hit points and the panic of getting hit. If you do not place the food on the red click tile, you will however need to make some evasive maneuvers, since you can't stall Bandos in the corner, but you shouldn't be concerned by this. You can either do option A or B shown on the screen. Option A is a little bit more relaxed, but either will work. I will slow down the screen now to show you how to avoid getting hit by Bandos and still remain calm. You start on your number 4 tile and proceed to number 5, where you would normally go to number 6 in the corner. Here you can go to option A. As you leave tile 5, pray protect from melee, and then run through Bandos. He could range you here, but in that case he chose to melee us. If you take a 30, that's his max hit for range, you're just going to have to tank it and move on. But as you can see here, the cycle is reset. Here you can see option A or B. What we did was just A. And here, after you proceed, you pray protect from melee, and then once you've returned, protect from range. And here's a visual example of option B, going into the corner, protecting from melee, and then returning, running out, and back to range. Overruns and tile skips. Throughout your trip or individual kills, you may make clicks that you aren't confident in. This can be a result of human error or potential world lag and momentary freezing of the animation. It is important to know which tiles are useful for resetting or overrunning so you can put some space between Bandos and yourself. On the screen now is a graphic to explain where it is reasonably safe to overrun a tile and you not need to switch your prayer. But first, let's look at the red lines. The Y shape. All actions in this area are crucial to stalling Bandos. Any mistakes or lags in this area, the player should follow what we learned in the previous section, switch to melee and reset the cycle. The routes shown in green are the tiles that you can skip or overrun to regain the cycle without the need of panicking or making any further mistakes. On the screen now you can see an example coming from the corner tile. After the red click, you will see that we will skip a tile here, and this gives us an opportunity to either eat some food or just regain our thoughts and complete the cycle and start over. If you run into issues in the red area or the Y shape, recovery is similar to what we reviewed in the last section when you don't have a red click tile. Switch to protect from melee and overrun as shown by the red line in the screen. In some cases, even if I make the setup correctly and get the red click registered, I will still overrun if I'm not confident in my click or if the game has had some lag spikes during the kill. Eating and drinking. This is very similar to the previous section, as you'll need to avoid interrupting the flow of the clicks in the red or Y area to ensure that you stall Bandos. Using the same graphic, the areas in green are recommended for eating and drinking a potion dose or food. Remember to only do one action in between tiles, and always click Bandos once you reach the tile, even if you are unable to attack from eating. Remember to maintain your rhythm. If you are concerned that you cannot do the actions and keep moving, do a tile skip if necessary. But if you are in a situation where you cannot wait for a green area to do a tile skip, as a last resort you can make a run for the northern or southern wall, keeping Bandos behind you, and begin eating as you run. Just remember that depending on where Bandos is, you may need to pre-melee to reset the cycle. On the screen now is just an example of what can happen when things go wrong if you don't have enough health or you misclick. I purposely created this situation, and you can see that I'm basically just defending and running around the whole time praying melee. Rewind it and play it back and just see how in certain areas you pray melee or run to a wall and start eating if you don't have the time or the hit points to continue the cycle. So here we are, we're just out on a trip here to kind of just go through a little bit of a workshop, a little bit of summary of the things we've learned. One thing that you might notice is we do not have a cannon base in our inventory, that we haven't used a cannon base throughout this guide. That's because personally I don't use the cannon base, however you can if you choose to. The only reason I don't do it is because just personally I prefer to have the extra brew or the extra piece of food. And you know, as we start the rounds, you want to make sure that your stamina is at a decent amount. I don't use the stamina doses for each round because you'll just be consuming them too fast. That's something I learned early on. So I just watch it. If you're learning, this is your first few trips, then I would recommend taking a stamina dose, because it can really, like, having to watch your stamina while you're trying to learn and while you're trying to move around and maintain clicks is not necessarily ideal. So if you're learning and you just want to focus on learning the rhythm and the techniques and the clicks, I would say just take a stamina dose, unless you're at like 100%. If your stamina dose runs out and Bandos is almost dead, it can basically cripple your kill. So if you're also on low health, just while you have the minions out, you can run around the room. I'm not doing it very perfectly here because I'm trying to think and talk at the same time, which isn't the best, but you can see here we avoid that hit. We avoid this. You can just use the tiles in the room if you have to. Same principle as avoiding Bandos. Very difficult to talk and think. I learned that earlier while I was trying to film the bits for the earlier part of the video. I was noticing that I was trying to make mistakes, and I ended up not making the mistakes that I was trying to intentionally make because I was trying to make other ones, and you're like trying to think about it, and you're almost like breaking something that you've ingrained in your mind. We're back. We're back in a little cycle here. So you will take a potion dose there, like I said, because that's a good spot to take your potion. That's a safe area. Get our range boosted back up. Come down in the corner. Land on that red click. If you're having a problem landing your red click on the tile up here, what I like to do is let the motion, one thing that's always bugged me is the motion that is affecting your mouse click, because you're going to move over something, but your character is also moving, so your screen is moving. So I'll kind of let my character carry me into that click, you know, go a little bit past it, overshoot it a little bit. Thanks for watching. If you have any comments or questions, please feel free to leave them below, and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. This was our 7.0 supplementary guide. Like I said earlier on, please watch a full 7.0 Bandos guide before or after watching this video. This video is just to supplement some of the strategies once you're in the room and how to manage and recover certain situations with Bandos. Alternatively to asking your question in the comments, you can also see the Discord link below and click on it. Once you're in the Discord, you can reach out to me directly and I'm happy to answer any of your questions. Thanks for watching again.